So this subject of small talk is fascinating to me. Audis hate small talk. Okay, that's original. We know this. I'm going to share some of my thoughts on it. And it obviously connects with another subject, which is the concept of autists constantly oversharing. The reason why I see an obvious connection between this is because it's an autistic communication style. It's greatly neurodivergent. There are a lot of similarities I've heard that I hear ADHDers themselves talking about being baffled by stuff like small talk, empty conversation, saying something that you don't mean, having to decipher what the person actually means, all that stuff. If somebody's speaking to you, I don't care if it's a cultural difference in neurocultures between typicality and non-typicality, or atypicality, or divergence, as it is known. It is 100% going to always function as something somewhat incredibly confusing when you do not know what it is or how it works. And a lot of the people who use the masked communication style, where they say one thing and mean the other, don't even understand how it works. So it's not surprising that we as autists can't figure out what they're saying or why, because they don't understand what they're saying or why. In general, people are doing things. They do not understand why they're doing them. They don't understand what it means. It's just an issue of them having picked it up without having to have the understanding of why or how first. When we run into that as autists, our experience is not to be so messed up that we can't enjoy small talk. We don't enjoy it because part of our spiritual gift that is inherent to us is to appreciate the truth. Small talk is very often on such a low level of existence and so repetitive, and something that, let's face it, you're not usually having with one person. You're often engaging in it or standing in it while other people engage in it for years, decades of your life. It's generally something I know us to run into for our entire lives, but perhaps you could live a life where you're away from it during some time frame and you're close to it during the other. It's something where it's going on nonstop for our entire lives. It's a pre-organized, scripted series of conversational prompts and responses that mean nothing. And since they mean nothing, we tend to have no use for them. It is not because we are incapable of figuring them out. They are patterns and they are scripts. We are autistic. We can learn a neurotypical stereotype if we want to. It's an issue of being completely baffled about it, because what is supposed to be the use? And the reason why we can't figure out the use is because we are spiritually gifted in a very different way. We have different brain types because they're needed for different functions. And our brain type is not for neurotypical functions. This is why we are capable of other things than neurotypical functions. So when we run into something like small talk and we just hate it and we can't deal with it, it is because the things that we are set here on this planet for have nothing to do with this communication style. And since it is completely worthless to us and does not advance our lives or our minds or our knowledge, definitely, to any degree whatsoever, we tend to be clearly baffled, because if something has no true use or perfect purpose on this planet for us, our needs, and our gifts, why in the world are we engaging in it or expected to do so? Annoying to me that my throat is already showing signs of tired this day, but I'm tired this day, so maybe that's just a thing. I might have to take this hood off in a minute, which will be interesting because my microphone is attached here. But what I'm saying is there's a connection. Autists have a tendency to really enjoy the concept of conversation that holds a body to it, something with a point, something with a purpose, something where you can learn something, or you can share with someone, or you can connect, you can learn, you can interact. That spiritual connection where a human being is aware that they exist and they can act like it. One of our spiritual gifts as autists is that we are capable of keeping the truth. Ours is unintentional. It is inherently programmed. There must always be truth keepers, lest everyone forgets and everything is repeated over and over again and no progress is made. We keep the truth by nature. We can't help it. This is why we have a tendency to dislike a fake or empty conversation with anyone. And this is why we have a tendency to do what some people like to label oversharing, because in their culture, inside of that one bubble, it could be considered oversharing by comparison to what they are accustomed to. Whatever it is that they have accepted does not mesh with our style of communication. However, if you can think outside of that bubble to any degree and process us as people, I know, star mark philosophy, autists are people. Shocking. But if you can process us as people and as human beings, if we can process ourselves as people, human beings with a purpose, creatures that exist beyond the plastics and fleshes of this apparent physical universe, we have a purpose, and what we love is truth, information, understanding. We have particular gifts in this area. In fact, this is why we have a tendency to have true empathy. We have a tendency to know what is going on. Something is going on. We might not know the details because, once again, no one has explained it. No one has taught us. And when we ask, we're not really getting any depth generally from the people and the sources that we ask, because they don't actually understand what's going on. On a spiritual level, it's kind of mind-blowing. If you can start processing something like a basic psychological level, that's a lot easier to understand because it's just going to be on one specific layer of existence and it's there to serve a particular series of purposes. And very often what's going on is that people don't know what's going on in their own lives and their own communication styles because it's working for them and it suits their culture. So what's there to challenge them, really? We challenge them. There are so many places where this could go. All of these subjects are completely linked. The fact that we as autists inherently tend to link in, and I'm not going to try to talk about the empathy thing in this video, I hope, but the fact that we automatically and naturally link in, we are spiritually geared toward the truth. Even if we, because we are human, can be deceived and believe something that isn't true. Even if we can be deceived and believe something that isn't true about ourselves. We are always open to a self-proof. If we find the truth, or the truth seeking us, manages to display itself in a way that we can process, if it is a self-proof instead of just something someone is forcing on you with words and making up proof and all this stuff, this is the thing about us. We are capable of learning and growing in a very different way because we don't need everyone else to believe the truth with us. We are capable of believing the truth all by ourselves. I'm living proof of this. All by ourselves, very often in different rooms, in different societies, in different places, because the truth is a self-proof. And it doesn't matter if that is the truth of how someone treats you behind closed doors when no one else is around to see it, but they're there, you're there, and they're treating you this way. We can believe in that truth. Given whatever it takes to break free from the matrix of examples and suggestions and, frankly, sometimes gaslighting, where somebody's trying to get you to believe something that obviously isn't true for some reason. When it proves itself, whenever it gets to a level, we've generally all had some kind of relationship in some situation where no matter what, the only thing that ends up making sense is I'm still having this experience with this person and they're still doing it. I can't get them to communicate differently. I have to communicate differently. It's a whole thing, our style of communication. This is why we're constantly put upon to learn to communicate in another manner, in order to encourage us to walk in that way, believe that thing, to think that our communication style is inherently flawed by constantly showing us with this forced proof everybody has that it doesn't fit. It only doesn't fit with them. Try having some interactions with other autists, other neurodivergents, other autists, autistic ADHDers, and or ADHDers. It's an entirely different thing when there's someone in the room who can think like you than when you're the only one in the room who can think like you, and you're trying to interact in the exact same way as a bunch of other people who can think like each other. The reason why we enjoy the concept of oversharing is because, as much as that's a derogatory term, what we are sharing means something. We are talking about the truth, actual life experiences, things which have hurt or harmed us, things that have been joyful, curiosities, questions, answers, things we've learned along the way with, I can't remember the term, I always say this. I always say first-hand experience is queen, because that is the number one thing. We have had our experiences and we are sharing them. It's a truth keeper's duty to disseminate the knowledge and the wisdom. So as human beings, any type of human being, as we gather whatever level of knowledge and wisdom necessary, we will tend to disseminate truth if we are capable, because we know the power in it. We know that when we tell our story, someone else might relate, and it might shift their entire world into a better place. We know that when we tell our story repeatedly, it might do some work to break down what other people have been saying about us in our absence of self-advocation. When we share the truth, we speak it into the atmosphere, and depending upon your level of thinking and processing what's happening when you speak, when you put your words out there, when you put your strength, your energy, your truth, when you put your knowledge, your experience out there, it changes something. It could change things on a level you might not even understand. I sit here and record these videos, and I wonder if anybody who hears them, with each video, I wonder, why am I making this? But when I feel led and called to make a video, I make it, because I know God has it out there for some reason, whether it is to teach me something or to do something for me, or it is to teach someone else or to do something for them, or some combination thereof. And so I sit here and I talk. And I have noticed, when it comes down to autistic conversation being pathologized and treated as if there's something wrong with it, no one has got the courage or the guts or the know-how to come out here and say, this is a ruse. We function, it's not even about waiting for people to be spiritually awakened. It's at the point now where there are basic medical studies, scientific studies that are being done. I don't know how many, but I did a video a while back where I linked one. Perhaps I could find it again, but I'm probably not. Don't bother looking for a link. I'm probably going to completely forget in a minute, quite frankly. But you can go out now and see where people are like, hey, why don't we put autistic people in a room with autistic people, and then put autistic people in a room with non-autistic people, and then put non-autistic people in a room with themselves and see what happens. And guess what ended up happening? You put the autist with the allist, the non-autistic, the allist, and they don't communicate naturally. There's an issue between them. Then you put the non-autistic person, we're saying allistic, but I doubt that they went and tried to grab ADHDers or somebody on that list. It was really supposed to be a neurotypical thing based on what I read about it. So autists and neurotypical together do not communicate properly. Oh, that's amazing. The tradition is that's because we're so messed up we screw up every conversation by nature. It's shocking that it played out again. So then you put the NT in a room with an NT. Guess what? They interact properly. Oh, past history is saying that's because they communicate properly, and once you eliminate the autist, there's nothing to screw up the conversation. But then what happens? You put an autist in a room with an autist, and we communicate properly with each other. Now, how is that possible? If we have a communication disorder, that means we can't communicate. So putting us in a room with somebody else who has the same spiritual gifts and the same neuro culture and the same neuro language can't possibly help us to communicate with each other, because we're inherently disordered. This is not something you have to understand on any spiritual level. Basic science has made the mistake or the advancement, whatever we want to call it today for whatever the reason, of going out and deciding to look at it, and now there's some proof out there inside of that system that autists can communicate with each other. So then they ask, and I mention this and I give all the details again, even though I already talked about it, because it's still relevant in our world, especially as autists. We need to be aware of this, to hear it, to know it. Everyone does. But we need to, because there is a multi-generational wound of being theoretically disabled that we are carrying. And it is shocking that it's always supposed to be one-sided. In my experience, I have never run into a neurotypical who automatically communicated like an autist. But I also never called them disabled because they weren't able to be me instead of themselves. I'm just a person who's sitting here 100%. I'm not even rejecting it. It just doesn't exist to me. You're not going to call me disabled because I'm not able to be you instead of me. I'm not trying to be you. You don't exist in this manner. I have been made to be me, and that is who I am. I'm busy about that and growing and living my life and not being ashamed in any way, shape, or form that I am a different creature, because I know I have a use. This would be good medicine for anybody, to be more aware that they were made for a specific use, and it is not a negative one. Nonetheless, what I'm saying about this is, after the fact, when they're asking the NTs and the autists, well, who did you enjoy communicating with more? I don't know what they expected. The NTs said they enjoyed communicating with the NTs. Shocker. You put someone in a room with someone with whom they can communicate and they enjoy it. What was surprising people is that the autists said that they enjoyed being with the autists. Once again, they're in a room where they can actually communicate with each other on an even playing field because they have that similarity, inherently so. And they enjoyed that more. Absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely incredible. The concept of us theoretically oversharing and not small talking and whatever else it is they're picking up on today, actually some of the stuff that we are accused of having is kind of a weird series of accusations, because if you can call it something like a disability, oh, you're not able to learn the neurotypical stereotypy of small talk, the scripts that you're supposed to repeat over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and you can't stop repeating them because it messes up your whole shebang. Easy to make that seem like there's something wrong with us. But we also have a lot of very different conversational capabilities. Some of us are very well known for not, this is interesting, I don't know how much information there is. I was noticing somebody who studied on a small level autistic communication on a spiritual or non-accepted, non-physical level. And it included people who are either non-speaking or low-speaking, and the study is supposed to be vast. But because I haven't finished delving into that myself, I'm still just in the place where I'm finding it interesting. I know this is the case because, frankly, I've experienced this myself to some degree. And it's complex, but I have had nonverbal, non-physical communication with people where, honestly, at some point in my life, it was so well known that it was taking place between us that it was a thing where if somebody didn't respond, the other person would be like, I don't understand what happened. I called you, meaning in the spirit, right? This is a spiritual thing. I called you in the spirit and you didn't come. I was worrying if it just didn't work anymore or if something was wrong, because it's just something that we were accustomed to. So I don't have a problem believing it because, again, these have just been the things of my life. There's not really a way to convince me that it isn't true because it's a personal series of experiences with the self-proof. But nonetheless, we have different ways of communicating, and people who have been labeled as not being able to communicate, maybe that label is just exactly what it is by name, something somebody put on it to describe it, but the label is very seldom the exact same as the thing it's describing. You can take a piece of paper and write the word rose on it and stick it on a flower, but that piece of paper is never going to actually replace or become the actual rose. It's supposed to be descriptive, but it's famously said that even if you called it anything else you can think of, any other name, it would still be a rose. Its nature doesn't change because of what it's called. As autists, as neurodivergents, me, as ADHDers, we need to, wherever possible, be able to experience and learn ourselves outside of the labels for what we truly are, because we will always be whatever is the essence of a rose, whether or not we're called a rose, or as I used to say, if someone decided to call it a poop swirl, it would still be the same rose. It's just that now everybody would feel awkward wanting to pick up poop swirls and go, ah, lovely. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's the same exact thing. People are still going to be taking rose petals and strewing them on the floor and on the beds in their wedding rooms, you know, like honeymoon stuff, and throwing them into their food and using them to season salads and chocolates, because they're still going to be extremely premium, beautiful, highly naturally beautiful things, no matter what you call them. Even if you decide across the world we're now going to call it the equivalent of a poop swirl, it does not matter. So basically, you as the rose need to just figure out what you actually are, rather than what you're supposed to think you are based on the label you have. My entire life, knowing these things and saying these things and thinking these things and just never saying them. And for whatever reason today, I had some energy influx, and I'm using it to make a video because I didn't have the energy before. So I'm transmuting it into something worthwhile instead of lowering myself to let it be what it was when it came at me. It's another thing I have a natural talent for. We have different communication styles. What I'm saying is they're not all inherently something that's easy to pathologize. There are people out there who can communicate without the physical body being involved. I am and have been one of them all of my life. I actually have had this experience. I'm not going to lie, I'm not sure I've ever had this experience with people who are not also autistic. That thought has just occurred to me now, and it is a heck of distracting, so I'm going to do my absolute best to not start delving into that, but it's just occurring to me. They have all been autistic, and there are other things that are a part of our communication style when we are known for being highly loquacious, or at least capable of communicating verbally. If we are known for being able to speak, I think it's kind of nice. We have a tendency, in my experience with the people I've known, to communicate truthfully. Truth, and being the knowledge keeper and the knowledge earner, the knowledge grabber and the knowledge disseminator. Whoa, it just got so bright all of a sudden. What the heck? I've got my curtains closed in such a way that this should not be happening right now. Excuse me. Truth is always a party to that. For some people, that will never have any value. For me, I know its value profoundly clearly. I consider that to be an incredibly good thing. I would never pathologize that or make it out to seem as if it's a disability, because I understand the magnificence, the rarity, the value, the purpose. Another thing about us, when we are the highly speaking autists, the ones who just like me, I started and I haven't stopped. It was a thing someone said to me at some point. I started talking and I have not stopped talking since. It's just been an ongoing thing for us. One of the things that we have in our communication style is very often that we have it, what other people consider to be. We don't always tend to consider it to be that, except by comparison to others. But unto itself, that's a different deal. We're just being who we are. But we tend to have what others consider to be an extremely impressive vocabulary, an understanding of a great deal of things, subject matter, of literature, of concepts, etc. And because we are able to put them into that one specific oral category of communication that people like to count, that a lot of people like to count, then we are considered to be extremely intelligent, because they're capable of processing in their style and their language and their culture they're capable of processing what we are saying. Since once again, in that instance, our communication style has meshed with theirs enough that they're processing it in that way. I've never really heard anybody say that that was something sick. Maybe because it's a little difficult when your culture really lauds the concept of high intellect and your own discovery of words and literature, etc., to then tell somebody else that they are diseased because they understand the words and the literature, etc. Maybe that's just a place where it's too difficult to make both of those things somehow seem true, but that's another highly well-known and extremely common autistic communication style, where we simply know things and we know the language with which to get those things across. I find that an extremely important part of autistic communication style, I'm looking at my list now because I'm realizing the video is taking wings and legs, but let's go with it. Another thing that I have noticed about autistic communication style, because for me, communication is only as important as its understandability. I can't think of a better word. I might use some made-up words. I hope I'm not right now because I don't want to explain them. But if you can't understand what someone is communicating, the message is as deadness in the atmosphere. This is what's frustrating for some of us, quite frankly, when we know something, whether it's just basic human flesh plastic level or it goes up to the experience of God. When we know and we cannot get that point across, it can be maddening. It's a highly well-known autistic experience. You're explaining something and the people to whom you are explaining it cannot understand it. It is extremely important to communication. Honestly, I think if there's no understanding, it's not really communication. It's just talking at or writing at or whatever. It's an attempt at communication, but to me it's not actually functioning. And one thing I find amazing about us is that, again, when you get us in the room together, we communicate naturally. Even if we do not click, it doesn't matter if we click and we're besties immediately. It doesn't matter if we do not click and we part ways. Just that simply. I've had both experiences. It's amazing. Especially the parting of ways things. It's just, okay, we're not clicking. Let's just not make our lives about that situation, but naturally, sanely move our separate ways. That's the best thing for each of us. No one's feelings are hurt. It's just clear and obvious why it's happening. There's no problem with it. That's an amazing form of communication where you just realize that you're not clicking, and because you have the same neural culture, you can behave in the same ways about it. And because you have the same neural language, you can understand that you're not clicking, and then you can behave in a necessary and completely understandable manner. It clicks. I'm sure there are some autists out there who are absolutely full of it, because all human beings have the capacity. But in my experience, thankfully and gratefully, just because of the way I live, how I live, under what I live, for what purpose I live, I do have a tendency to manifest automatically certain things in my life. That's one place where I'd say it's definitely worked, and it has a lot to do with the value of the experiences. It doesn't matter what comes to me, the communication that's happening is always worthwhile to my life and my journey. And so I've had a lot of really good experiences in the ND community. Even when I've been having bad ones, it has 100% been an entirely different type of ordeal than it has been outside of the did I say neurotypical? When I'm inside neurodivergent community. It's a completely different situation than when I'm outside of neurodivergent community. Yeah, now I'm hot. Fabulous. So I'm just going to see if I can cool off and continue to speak. This might end up being another video so I can watch this one back, get my thoughts, and continue my points. Autistic communication. You do so much studying and you learn about what people are saying. And I was trying to say the small talk, oversharing link. I can't remember if I made the connection. I was trying to make the connection through my point and just go naturally with the words. But the concept is small talk as completely worthless, and oversharing as actually just being a nasty way of saying, we're not afraid. We're just not afraid. We're not afraid of the truth. We're really not afraid of it. We are blessed and gifted to cling to it, to seek it out, to only accept it, and to continue to search for it, whether we know it or not. It's just a way that we're built. We don't even do this on purpose. We just really end up embracing it at some point because it is so clear and obvious what everybody else is doing. In certain situations, certain rooms in life, you will realize some people are not only not after the truth, they really don't even want it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go on to explain why we very often have, I might do this in another video. I can see it's been 30 minutes already. I have a lot to say on this subject. I feel my energy waning. But I'm going to at some point explain in a video why it is that people seek us out in order to tell the truth. And then after performing what seems to be an incredibly spiritually intimate bonding session with us, they just disappear into the ether sphere after it. Because if I do not address this from a level of ultimate truth, I am not going to be able to explain it properly. So if I have the energy and I have the goal, I'm going to tell you the spiritual reason why people absolutely, sometimes they're just uncomfortable. Sometimes they're just like, oh, I'm so awkward. I don't know. Something gets awkward in your relationship and you don't understand why. Sometimes they immediately hate your guts and you're trying to understand why the last interactions you had were so honest and so worthwhile. They shunned the concept of empty speak and they rolled into the land of something honest. I know you, you know me, let's share. And then all of a sudden, boom, they just can't tolerate you anymore. But we'll see. And in case I end up cutting that out, which I might not do because I don't feel like editing like that today, yeah, stick around because I have a heck of a lot more to say on the subject of autistic and ADHD. In my experience, autistic and ADHD communication versus non-that communication. So let me see. Yes, most definitely the energy is waning. So, well, I didn't say at the beginning, but here we are. I'm Aviana Lemaire. This is my channel, and I'm going to read my outro as soon as I find it. Have any thoughts or questions? Share them in the comments. Notice any gaps in the autistic, ADHD, or ADHD community conversation? Want a spiritually, mystically inclusive ND voice on a subject? Looking for an extra opinion or viewpoint? Share your suggestions in the comments. If I can address them, I might make them into a video. Remember to like, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell for all of my newest updates, and be blessed. And I'm currently experiencing another format, hiccups, phooey, of ADHD communication style, where the energy, a certain type of overstimulation took place. All of that energy got locked inside of me. So what did I do? I turned it around and I shoved it back out. But did I shove it back out in the way that it came? No. I did something I hope will be great for everybody, or at least for somebody. Is it even brighter now? This is shocking. Fabulous. Whatever. Interesting day so far. We shall see. I'm blazing hot now. I don't know what changed, but I'm guessing it has to do with all that stinking light. That's about it. Bye now.